Thank you, Chairman. After so many mentions of Marx, it's probably time to remember something from Lenin. One of his imperative observations was that all conflicts arise from imbalances in economic development. Probably some of you still remember this observation. And I'd like to note that the imbalances which arise in our region as a result of the crisis, but in fact they are not a result of the crisis, but the crisis has global economic crisis has a multiplying effect on the on those imbalances. To give you an example of what those imbalances are, Azerbaijan this year is having 8-point-something GDP growth rate, whereas Armenia, in which, talking about comparing Azerbaijan and Armenia, it's the most convenient way of thinking in Azerbaijan. That's why, and in Armenia too. But in Armenia, there will be 18%. 15 to 18% GDP decline, which is comparable to the period when the Soviet Union collapsed, right after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And the next year, this is also not going to turn into a positive growth. This is just 1 year observation. If we compare the situation in which the countries will be in 2014, according to IMF projections, as compared to 1994, the year when the ceasefire agreement has been signed, Azerbaijan per capita GDP will be 5 times higher than in Armenia. Azerbaijan total GDP will be 15 times higher than in Armenia. So 20 years of local Cold War edition competition in a local Cold War. After 20 years, the situation will be a severe imbalance. Plus, during those 20 years, Azerbaijan will add 1.5 million of population to reach 9.5 million, whereas Armenia's population will decline to less than 3.5 million. So we see and we foresee huge imbalances in the development in our South Caucasus region. And also, I'd like to note that the South Caucasus region in the global division of labor does not have any particularly important, sophisticated role. It's a mere transit corridor between Central Asia and the rest of the world. And that's our actually, unfortunately, after almost 20 years of independence, this is our very simple, unsophisticated role, and that is going to hold for some time. That is not going to change for some time, as Russia and say Western allies are competing for the for the Central Asia region, and that corridor consists currently of Georgia and Azerbaijan. Armenia is practically out because it has made a political choice to ally itself with the Russian side in this competition. So all potential future flows of energy from Central Asia to the global markets will go through Azerbaijan to Georgia, and then to the rest of the world, and the same corridor will may work as a channel for penetration of political influence from the West to the Central Asia. Another example. Somebody told about the weight of the remittances in the economic in the GDP. So in Armenia, it's currently it was shown as 15% of the GDP. And last year's statistics was 2 billion euros have been transmitted to Armenia by remittances, individual remittances in total. This year there's a decline of 45%. Whereas Azerbaijan's economy is practically not dependent on the remittances, although a lot of Azerbaijanis work in Russia and send remittances, but the size of that, the importance of those remittances shrinked. So the Azerbaijani economy is not healthy. That's another aspect. That's another aspect of our current well-being. But on the other hand, the current ongoing oil boom in other energy, oil and gas boom will continue till 2030s. That's an important factor. So the economy is not healthy. The financial sector is not developed. For instance, the central bank last year began to reduce the refinancing rate since September till February or March. It reduced it from 15% to 2%. It had zero effect on the exchange rate on the market. And securities market is also not developed. So the economy is rather primitive in that respect, but it's still making a lot of money and will continue to make money. Azerbaijan, just with the current existing contracts in place, in the next 10 years, Azerbaijan will have to absorb $150 billion only with the current contracts. I'm not talking about the Shah Deniz 2 stage, which is in 10 years. In 10 years. During 10 years, we have fixed revenue of at least $150 billion. Plus, there will be Nabucco, if there will be Nabucco, Shah Deniz, which is a major source of gas. So, and we are in a situation of conflict with Armenia. And the imbalances which I'm just talking about, they may lead both to full reconsideration of the essence of this competition in both sides, but it can also lead to the war, as Vladimir Lenin would predict. In that context, it's not surprising that the Turkish-Armenian dialogue came to the scene in this situation, when we see changing place for Armenia in South Caucasus, and we see, in generally, we see transformation in the South Caucasus region. Armenian position began to change as a result, because the Armenian government has to govern a country. It's an interesting situation when there's a big diaspora living with its own agenda, and there is population living in the country. So with 45% decline in the remittances from abroad, 18% decline in the GDP, the Republic of Armenia, some forces outside of the Republic of Armenia demand regional behavior based on the agendas which exist in California, in France, or in some provinces of Russia. That is unnatural situation, and that as a result of that, and not as a result of any other major developments, the position of official Yerevan has begun to change in the past several months, and we have witnessed the signing of the Turkish-Armenian protocols. Yet they expect ratification, but it is an important process. These imbalances, which I'm mentioned in the regional economic competition, unfortunately, we're still competing. We're not cooperating. but our competition is a consequences. It's one of the consequences of the military armed conflict, which has not been resolved yet. So if the Armenian speaker, Suryan Movsisyan, spoke about the lack of economic cooperation in our region, I think he is absolutely right in noting that almost 18 years after the independence, we're still in the process of competition, regional competition, economic and political rather than economic and political cooperation. But it's important to see that the imbalances in this economic competition make no reason for Azerbaijan to share its wealth with Armenia, which is just, you know, the imbalance, the wealth Azerbaijan is accumulating and will be accumulating in the next couple of decades or 3 decades is a negotiating, gives Azerbaijan stronger negotiating position, and that's why Azerbaijan will not engage Armenia in any economic affairs in the region. Political cooperation, yes. Civil society cooperation, yes. Anything of that kind is welcome and accepted, but unless the Republic of Armenia stops discontinues the occupation of Azerbaijani territories, none of this wealth will be through the means of economic cooperation sent across the border. So I think all this situation is again can produce. Concluding, in conclusion, I'd like to say, re-emphasize that all this situation, all these imbalances, all these new dynamics which we are observing can lead both to can make us closer to the peace deal, and on the other hand, it can lead to the renewal of the war.
So thank you very much for this elaborated but not clearly conclusive remarks about the situation.
50.
Yes. Because on the one hand, Azerbaijan will be, of course, stronger vis-à-vis Armenia. On the other hand, it will have more to lose if entering into the war with Armenia. Sometimes the dynamic